created. If there's no more space remaining, then they have to overwrite old ones. So when a new memory is created, if there isn't any spare room, our brain decides which memories are useless and can therefore be forgotten, and it deletes them to make room for the new memory. Oh, and before you say we're born with so many brain cells and we can't grow new ones, that rumour simply isn't true. Research has shown that brain cells and neurons continue to grow in our brains throughout our entire lives, although the process does slow down somewhat as we age. So why does this deletion of memories occur more often as an infant than as an adult? Two reasons. The first is that our brains are developing at an astonishingly fast rate as a child. We are learning and developing faster than we ever will in the remainder of our life. So a lot of room needs to be made for new memories and skills that we learn. Secondly, a lot of what we experience as an infant is deemed non-essential by our brain. Because let's face it, you don't need to remember the time you were on all fours in the garden and you tried to eat a tulip. So all these useless memories we create as an infant are the first to be discarded when new memories are created and new skills are learned as we grow up. So to summarise, we can't remember being a baby because our brains have emptied the trash because our hard drive was getting rather full. Thanks for the view, subscribe for more. 42. Hey, 42 here. 62% of people claim that their pets understand what they say. Whether or not animals can hear, recognize, and possibly even understand what humans say has always been a profound mystery. Recent evidence attempts to reveal once and for all whether Tony the Terrier knows the difference between good boy and Tony, did you chew my s-? As a control test, Funks asked Von Osten to step inside the tent and ask Hans mathematical questions like he usually does. As expected, Hans got most of the questions correct. However, Funks then asked Von Osten to move a little farther away from Hans whilst he asked the questions, and subsequently, Hans got far fewer answers correct. Finally, Funks told Von Osten to ask Hans questions that he knew Von Osten did not know the answer to. When Von Osten asked these questions, the accuracy of Hans's answers fell to almost zero. It appeared that in order for Hans to get the answer correct, the person asking the question had to know the answer to the question also. These results were very strange, but incredibly interesting. So Funks investigated further. He observed Von Osten's facial expressions and posture whilst he was asking Hans the questions. Funks noticed Von Osten's facial expression and posture changed right after he asked a question. His face and posture would tense up in expectation of Hans's answer. However, each time Hans tapped his hoof and got closer to the correct answer, Von Osten's posture and expressions would relax and become happier because he was relieved that Hans had seemingly arrived at the correct answer all by himself. It transpired that the horse was receiving small visual clues that acted as feedback. The horse would start tapping as soon as he observed Von Osten asking the question and then tensing up. When the tension had alleviated from Von Osten's face, Hans would stop tapping his hoof. Hans was never actually doing any mathematics. He was simply well attuned to his owner's visual clues. Von Osten was shocked at this revelation because he was completely unaware that he was providing Hans with these unconscious visual clues. He genuinely thought that his horse was a genius. The results of Funk's experiment had enormous effects on how all scientific experiments would be carried out in the future. This phenomenon came to be known as the clever Hans effect. The clever Hans effect as we know it today is when an experimenter unwittingly alters the results of an experiment simply because he or she is expecting a certain result. The simple expectation for something to happen can have huge consequences on an experiment's results, without the experimenter even realizing it. These days, necessary measures are taken when working with both humans and animals to prevent the clever Hans effect from altering the results of experiments. A border collie named Rico came into the spotlight in 2004 after being intensively studied by animal psychologists from the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology in Germany. The researchers showed such a great interest in Rico because his owners reported that he could understand over 200 words, a feat previously unheard of in the canine kingdom. To test whether Rico's skills were a bunch of fluff or a truly bona fide talent, the researchers set up an experiment. The researchers arranged 200 toys on the floor in a room adjacent to where Rico was being held. They did this 10 toys at a time. Each toy had a unique name, such as Fluffy or Squeezy. Rico's owners had already trained him to remember the name of each toy. Each time, the researchers would let Rico into the room with the toys and asked Rico to fetch a toy, then another toy, and then another, until Rico had fetched all 10 toys. Whilst the researchers were issuing commands to Rico, they stayed on the other side of a dividing wall, where Rico could hear them but not see them, to eliminate the clever Hans effect. In total, Rico successfully remembered and retrieved 93% of the toys. Impressive, but this was only a test of Rico's memory, not his cognitive function, i.e. his ability to use logic and inference just like a human. So, the researchers did a second experiment. They arranged 7 items in the room with an 8th item, which was brand new, which they gave a unique name to. Rico had never seen or heard the name of this new item before. Amazingly, when Rico was let into the room and asked to fetch the new item, he was very quickly able to infer which was the new toy and fetched it straight away. Rico seemingly used a process of deduction and elimination. This is called fast mapping, a process where one is able to quickly learn a new concept after a single exposure to brand new information. Human toddlers do this all the time, it's how they learn. Even more amazingly, Rico was able to fetch the new toys again 4 weeks later, having only seen them once. Out of the 6 new items that Rico was shown 4 weeks prior, he remembered 3 of them 4 weeks later. Interestingly, 3 out of 6 is the same rate at which adult humans are able to remember things that they saw 4 weeks ago. Chaser is another border collie who can reportedly remember the name of 1,000 toys and can retrieve each one of them just like Rico. But Chaser has another unique talent. She is able to recognize verbs. From a young age, Chaser's owner, a retired psychologist, trained Chaser to understand and utilize 3 verbs: nose, paw, and fetch. When Chaser's owner says paw Slinky, Chaser will go over to the toy named Slinky and put her paw on it. Similarly, if nose Slinky is said, Chaser will put her nose on the Slinky toy. And when fetch Slinky is said, Chaser will fetch the Slinky toy. Chaser's owner is able to swap the verb and the name of the toy for any one of 1,000 different toys, and Chaser will go over to the correct toy and do the correct action almost 100% of the time. That's about the same cognitive ability as a 3-year-old human child. This also demonstrates something astonishing. Chaser doesn't simply remember each and every command, it's not just a cheap memory trick. Chaser's brain is actually using cognitive function to determine what to do in each given situation. This is no different to how a human brain works. Although this is rather basic stuff for an adult human, it's an amazing display of cognitive ability and logical inference for an animal. It demonstrates that dogs do understand what we say, provided they are given the opportunity to learn these human-like concepts as a puppy. But that's no different from a human. Humans have to learn this stuff too. We aren't born knowing what "go get daddy a beer" means. As a baby, we learn the individual words that construct that sentence.